Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the St. Andrews Task Force to order. First, I'd like to apologize since we don't seem to have any agendas this evening. I'll work off from an old one for the reports. First under reports is the Community Hospital Work Group. Patty.
I'm going to speak for our group tonight. Bruce wasn't able to be with us today. Let's see, we accomplished 3 things in our working group meeting this week. The first is that we are on track with our site visits to a number of critical access hospitals in Maine. We're going to be doing the first one the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. We've already got it scheduled, and we have a list of 9 or 10 hospitals that we expect to visit in about the 3-week period right after Thanksgiving to collect information about how one does run a viable small rural community hospital. So that's number 1. Number 2, I'm still busy interviewing people. We're now up to about 36 interviews have been completed. And Andrew Twaddle, even though he's back at home, is analyzing. I've done qualitative interviews, and what he's doing is he's going through and pulling out the data from the interviews about the kinds of illnesses people have had and the kinds of issues they've had and the kinds of issues the community has, etc. So by the 20th, when we have our group meeting next week, we expect to have most of the interviews finished and the analysis of the interviews. So we could present those to the community at that point, summaries, obviously, of them. So that's on track. And Bruce, you just arrived, so maybe you can tell us. The third point is what the consultants, where are we with the consultants that
the work with the consultants is ongoing. We've had a couple of con calls with them, looking at a variety of issues, and we're just expecting that work to continue on as long as we can continue to pay them, of course, and we think it's all heading in a good direction towards defining a different direction, as we've talked about all along, for St. Andrews. So there isn't anything specific. The final product won't be ready for a while. I think they'll be present at the 20th meeting, is that correct? Yes. I will not be able to be there. We'll be out of town on a long-planned Thanksgiving family thing. So, but they'll be there, and they will cover that base in terms of talking about progress to date. There will be other outings with the community, with the consultants. We intend to be very proactive and interactive with the community, including more interviews with community members to augment what Patty's doing. So all of that will start to boil to the surface in the next several weeks as they start to really dig in. We are working under a very tight, difficult timeline, but the work is going forward as best as can possibly be expected.
Bella?
Bruce, do you have on your timeline for the iVantage report an end date or an end goal?
Yeah, we've given them the date of January 1st. Will we make it? Will we miss it by 5 days? I hope. I mean, we might. What we thought was we need time from that point to the planned closing of the ER to work with whatever we get to see if we can't come to some resolution on a different.
That gives us 3 months.
Pardon?
That gives us 3 months,
yeah.
Even if it's done by January 1st, which is seems to be a big task.
Yeah, a question for Bruce. Bruce, as we look at what they're doing, have we been given any kind, or have we given them any kind of charge as to what the output of that report might look like? There are some of us that would look for a business plan for going forward. There are some of us that might look for a possible solutions for negotiations with Lincoln County Healthcare. What kind of a charge have they been given to produce?
Well, their letter of engagement, which I don't know whether that's been shared or not, but the idea is twofold. First of all, to look at a population-based set of healthcare needs for the area, such as it exists in the data. I mean, we don't have time to do lots of new surveys or scientifically based surveys, but population-based healthcare needs. As we look at that, to challenge the idea that came out of the Navigant report that the ER should be closed and that we don't need a critical access hospital designation for the hospital. So it's kind of a twofold thing, looking at least that's the way I see it. If they were here, they might be able to explain it better, but looking at the healthcare needs and looking at how they might be delivered through the St. Andrews facility as a critical access hospital. The view that I think they share, I think I wouldn't be misinterpreting anything that I've heard from them, is that without the critical access designation, it seems like there would not be financial viability for the kinds of things that perhaps even Lincoln County Healthcare wants to do. We still want to understand the thinking behind relinquishing the critical access hospital with all that it means in terms of financial help to facilities. And so we're looking at the broad healthcare needs and at the same time looking at how that would get delivered through a continuation of critical access hospital.
Cool, thanks, Bruce.
Anyone else? Okay, data analysis report. Anything new to report tonight, Mike?
No.
Okay. Volunteer coordinator, Peggy.
I hope you all have one of these. Please tell me if you don't have one, let me give you one, because I try to take what I send out and mark in orange what I need to repeat in the meeting, and as you can see, I almost need to read this whole thing to you. First of all of you, are you missing your table over there? Yes. Yeah, well, it's coming back. We've had some other things happen in this space, and so they had to take our task force setup and move us into the other room, but it's coming back. And I should also tell you that there have been lots of people interested in what all the volunteers have been doing, and one of the reasons that a lot of our stuff is missing is because it's in great big boxes that's being shared with a lot of other people who are very interested in what the community has decided is important to them. All right, that brings me right here to this. Please give to the Second Opinion Fund. We've announced this. We now have to make this money. I will tell you, I'm not checking it. It belongs at the first. You walk into the first. You tell everybody you know to walk into the first and give money. Maybe we'll check it before the November 20th meeting, and maybe we won't. I only checked it once, and that once was the day after we announced it, and we had raised 10% of what we needed. So I figured we were going to raise it in 10 days. But it's been 10 days, and I'm not checking it yet. So, give to the Second Opinion Fund. Great big thing. We're going to be encouraging people at the early bird to walk right down the street. No, it's a Saturday. Anyway, give to the Second Opinion Fund. Right there is the information. The next thing down is the early bird sale, and we have people manning a table in front of a silver lining where we will have petitions and stickers and a donation box, and for however long it works. And right now we've got Sally Barter, Mary Williams, and Donna Morey who are manning it. The last person who's doing the last, I will come and clean everything up so you don't have to worry about it. If we don't do the whole day, that's fine. We figured that most of the crowds will be there very early in the morning. So let me know before you leave tonight. If you just can't stand not to be an early bird doing something special, we'll put you on this list. Then we've got next Tuesday. Next Tuesday is a very important date. Next Tuesday in the Boothbay Region Elementary School gym is our gathering with our legal counsel and our consulting group. We want everybody who is interested. It doesn't matter what side you're on or what you think should be done. It's a chance for us all to be together and to talk about possibilities and listen to what's being considered. 6 o'clock in the gym, but I need volunteers to man tables for petitions, Brochures, we will have new brochures, by the way. The old ones do not have the H on them. The new brochures we have some left over from the election, but not many. The new ones have an H on them and reflect things that we heard during the poll, at the polls. So we're going to get rid of the old ones and then get some new ones. So we have brochures to pass out, and we have a donation table, and I think, Tom Hagen, where are you?
Right in the front row.
Tom Hagen has done a wonderful thing for all of us. Chris, he answered your prayers. We will probably have bumper stickers that night. So if it's not that night, we'll have Now, of course, Tom is very generous. He probably wants to just give them out to everybody so we have them all over town. I think that night we should just ask for something in the donation box. Anything. First child, your first pension. Anyway, so that's coming next Tuesday. And again, I need people to let me know. They will work the petitions that night, and I think we're probably going to have 4 or 5 set up. Petition table, donation table, and somebody with brochures to answer questions. Turning the page, I'm sorry my report is so long.
It's all right.
No, we're not.
November 22nd, 2 days after next Tuesday is a week from Thursday, and that's Thanksgiving. And don't forget, McSeagulls is including the task force in its organizations that benefit from those who come on Thanksgiving and share their meal with the community and each other. So sign up, even if you just want to go and eat and then, or spend time with friends, put some money in the till, and thank McSeagulls for being a part of our community and choosing us. November 30th, in case you didn't have anything else on your calendar for November, November 30th we are doing a wham bam great potluck at the fire station, and I'm going to not talk too much about that because they're organized. They've got sheets for you to sign up in, and I'm sure they'll tell you about that in a minute. All right, then we move right on down this list. Thank you all, by the way, to all of the people who were at the polls. The names are listed here, the results of the petitions are listed here. All I can tell you is that since last Tuesday, my phone has been ringing off the wall, the emails have been full, and the reason is people who weren't at the election want to be on petitions. How do I get to sign a petition? I actually had an email from someone who works for our healthcare system who said that they work with lots of people who are not residents of the 4 towns but live in Lincoln County, and they desperately wanted to get their name on a petition. Was there some petition that they could sign? So now we have solidarity petitions. Anybody can sign them. And that's what will be at Early Bird, that's what will be November 20th, that's what will be at the potluck. From now on out, you will see solidarity petitions, so anybody in Lincoln County can sign them. Pat Farron, bless his little pea-picking heart. Pat Farron made sure that Wally Reed got his big sign, so as you now go into Booth Bay Harbor, in the not-too-distant future, you will see a sign just like the one you passed right out here that says, Help Task Force. He also is making a sign to announce the meeting on November the 20th, and he thinks it will be up on Friday. So if you see Pat Farron, or you can hug Ruth, and Ruth will hug Pat for us all. That brings me back to, if you didn't get to sign the petition, how can you get your name on a petition? Well, we do now have them at the Booth Bay Town office, right inside the front door. You can come in, sign up. They have brochures at the desk. Take your own sticker. We've said Early Bird, yes, November the 20th, yes, November the 30th, but what if you live out of town? And I was just saying here, how can someone who lives out of town, who wants to sign this petition, how can they do that? And I was going to ask tonight for a volunteer who will let me overtake their email and will establish some procedure that we can send out to all those people whose emails we have. And Donna Morey stepped up to the plate before any of you arrived and said, oh, I'll do it. So within the next week, we will have a procedure for anybody you know from out of state who owns property here or who visits here or loves our little community and what's here, a way for them to be able to get their name on a petition via email through Donna Morey. Our other question is those who do not get email. How can we get them information? If any of you have any ideas, not only about signing petitions, but about the weekly update, the things that are happening where they can get involved, if any of you have any ideas about where we can leave 10 or 12 copies of things around town, or if somebody's willing to deliver them, we can fill your arms. There's lots of people out there who are interested in getting involved, but don't do email, don't do computers, and we do need to reach out to them. The task force has been invited to participate in Studio 53's 3-day weekends in December, but I said, oh my gosh, we gotta get through November first. But I gave the information to Pam Reed, our poster child for special events, and she can tell you more about that if you're interested. And again, remember the bumper stickers. All right, I think that's it. Let me just double check. That's it. Thank you. Thank you all for being such wonderful volunteers.
Peggy, for those who haven't heard, what was the final tally after voting?
Okay, on page 2, thanks for asking, Chuck. The final tally last week was 1,758 signatures on the petitions. And let me tell you how it broke down by towns. 62.41% from Booth Bay. The Harbor was sitting a little over 57%. Southport at almost 36%, and Edgecombe right around 22%. A little quick math, as Chuck will tell you, if everybody who signed the petition would have put 20 cents on the pot, or $20 in the pot for the second opinion fund, we would be over our $35,000 we need to pay the consultants. So just think about that, and if you got an extra 20 bucks, stop on that the first. So,
My check will be there tomorrow.
thank you, Chuck. Thank you.
Any questions for Peggy?
Give her a break.
Next under reports, Boothby Region Ambulance Service Work Group. Anything new to report, Scott?
Just a few things.
Okay.
We attended a forum last week that was facilitated by Dr. Scholl, who's the main EMS medical director that supervises all the ambulances and provides medical directions through the Physicians Advisory Board. He's also I'm not sure his exact title, but he works for Maine Health, and he's one of the senior people in the emergency room down there. So he helped facilitate this meeting. We had some great responses from the community, so we're factoring that into some of the things that we need to address. We do have some training opportunities coming up at an advanced level with some scholarship money that's available. So that's going to, right now we're looking at 6 to 8 people that are available to take this program. It's going to start in February and last until May. It's a fairly significant time commitment, 2 nights a week with this fairly heavy clinical rotation schedule. So we have quite a few people that are interested in that. So that's a positive thing. We also did receive a grant that is going to help us with a critical care transport. It is a scope of practice expansion it will be a pilot program if we can get it approved. So no matter what happens, whether we're doing patients that might be of a higher acuity out of Miles or St. Andrews, if it stays open, if we can get this pilot off the ground, we'll be able to take patients that are a little less stable, a little more acutely ill, that would not be served now by the scope of practice that we're in. So we have some opportunities there. And basically, the other thing that we have done is we have got quite a bit of feedback from the community with what our budget may look like and what sort of subsidy that we're going to need, and why the main point is why we can't just charge more to Medicare or insurance companies. And I really need to reiterate that Medicare and federally funded programs like MaineCare are a capitated rate, and even though we charge a certain amount, what comes back for reimbursement is the only amount that we can receive, and that's the end of it, minus the 20% copay. We can't charge more than that once we receive those funds. If we participate with insurance companies, which is how we get reimbursed, same thing applies with them. We don't have the opportunity to charge more. So that was a suggestion that maybe we should just charge more once we receive what Medicare pays us, and that's really not an option at all. So I just want to reiterate that in the community, that what we receive for funding from insurance and for federally funded programs is pretty much it. There's really no way to get any more than that out of those programs. So.
Any questions?
How is your fundraising drive going? Don't you have a fundraising drive?
We're at, I think, the last I checked, it was around 35,000. So we're doing well. It was a long-term project. We didn't expect to have the full funding by the end of the year. We started at the kickoff was this summer, and we're working on it throughout the winter. So, and we've had some very generous offers from community groups that are willing to pick up the burden and help us to do some fundraising so that we're not putting ambulances on the road and trying to raise money at the same time. And that's once we kind of get through the initial phase of what we need to do to prepare for April 1st, we're going to take them up on that offer. But right now we're kind of focused on the preparing, and then this winter when things kind of lull a little bit. Absolutely, yeah.
You're expecting a lull.
More so than our summers, yes.
Tom?
I had some questions because I'm in a state of confusion with respect to just how things are working. My understanding is that you, I think it was you who appeared at the Boothbay Harbor Selectmen's meeting. No, it was somebody else. Anyway, and that to sort of lay the financial implications of all this on them. And as I understand it, my understanding may be incorrect, and therefore I'm hoping to get it straightened out. My understanding is that a couple of things emerged from that conversation. One was that there's money that needs to be spent to prepare for April 1st, and in fact, that's needed prior to July 1st. I mean, the towns, by and large, had their town meetings in the spring and their fiscal years, etc. So, and as I understand it, there's nothing the town can do. Even in the first place, there's no legal obligation for the towns to do anything. So you have to go hat in hand to each Board of Selectmen to try to get some money allocated. You've got a multi-$100,000 increase in annual operating costs that has to be accounted for somehow. That it turns out to be illegal for Lincoln County Healthcare to pay that directly to you for the reason that they're not supposed to favor one service over another. And thirdly, that the cost of getting ready to do all this obviously has to happen before July 1st, and it can't, because you don't have the money in your budget, the towns don't have the money, they couldn't vote the money even if they wanted to, so we're sort of in space. I mean, we're sort of frozen in space. What's the resolution?
Okay, I can try to steer through all this. Yeah. Okay, the first part is about the additional funding. Yeah. And our budget is truly a fiscal year budget from July to June. So this is going to hit us in the last quarter. Yeah. Probably we would ramp up in the mid-March anyway. Yeah. So there is some startup cost to this prior to April 1st. There's also some, right now, some insignificant compared to everything else, legal fees as we review the last part of your question. So what the challenge is to figure out how we're going to come up with approximately $50,000 from March 1st to the end of June. And if we ask for additional subsidy from the communities, it either has to come from their undesignated fund balance, or it has to be voted on for an additional tax appropriation, which doesn't allow much time for the towns to do that, and it tends to be expensive.
Well, they can't do it for the current tax year anyways, is my understanding.
I think they can't. It would be a supplemental tax bill.
Be a supplemental
so it would be all
bill.
those expenses, a town meeting expense, it would be the collection and all. Yeah. So it's a complicated process, but it could be done, but for 3 months, so we have to figure out where the 50,000 will come from. As far as next year's expenses, it is based on status quo as far as the level of service. There isn't any changes with respect to hiring full-time people that would be paid with benefits. It wouldn't be adding a different mixture other than keeping what we have now and adding the necessary people to cover being out of town for a longer amount of time, and also to offset the loss of revenue. The final part of that, as far as where the money comes from, obviously the towns would be the first fallback, because there are some things that need to be worked out. And one of the things that is really important to work out is the safe harbor provision for Medicare. And so what that means is that any hospital that, well, as you say, favors, so to speak, one service over another causes a problem. Now, what they have done in the past is, for example, restocking. If we go to the hospital and they resupply our IV equipment and they supply everyone else's, then that's an exemption and a carve-out in the Safe Harbor Act. So what we have to look at is how to make this work, and that's something that all the attorneys involved are looking at, and to see what level of funding, if any, that Lincoln County Healthcare can provide, and how's the best way to deliver it. And still, we don't know what the shortfall, if any, would be between what they would subsidize and what the ultimate budget would be. But there's some ways to look at it. We have our attorneys that are working on it, and the attorneys that we retained are kind of the national experts on Medicare. They're the ones that put on all the seminars. They're the ones that any time that there's a new regulation that's published, they're the ones that interpret it for the industry. So we're optimistic that they're going to give us the best advice possible how to make this work, if we can make it work.
Yeah.
Bruce?
The last sentence has been, is still resonating in my mind, if we can make it work.
And that's,
So we don't know yet that we could make it work.
I mean, we're all optimistic, but until the final
I
sign-off
understand.
has happened, and then we're kind of in limbo, just like everyone else in this
Yeah.
process.
Other questions?
So was the figure that Palmer Payne gave out at the Booth Bay Harbor Selectmen's meeting a couple Mondays ago,
Mhm.
$300,000 as a potential increase in operating costs that you were going to have to come back to the towns for?
That's for a full 12-year. What we did was,
So is that what you're anticipating, coming back to the towns for a full year as of July 1st?
right, exactly. That was, what we did to show what the impact would be, was we took this year's budget that we're in now, and we did it as if the change had happened this past July, so that we could compare apples to apples. So presumably, next year's budget would be the same. There's not any increase that we're anticipating for any special projects. The price of gas might go up a little bit, the price of heating oil might go up a little bit as far as what commodities there are, but we're not adding anything to the budget significant. So in general, minus the cost of inflation in the next few months, if there is any, that's pretty much what our budget is going to look like for next year.
So just to reiterate, you're going to be looking for something like a grand total over that period of time of $350,000 from the towns to come out of the
additional
tax base.
Right. The full impact was about 400,000. The town part, up and above, we already collect around 95,000 from the towns. So that's the 300,000 is the additional. And again, that's nothing more than some additional maintenance costs, having increased wear and tear on the ambulance, gasoline, for diesel fuel costs, and for the extra mileage. Loss of revenue, which may be offset by call volume that comes out of miles. So that number could get cut down quite a bit. If we're doing transfers out of miles and the revenue's there to offset that, maybe the number's a wash. We don't know that yet. All we know is what we're losing and what our experience has been out of miles so far. So the first year it may be a huge spike and then come down the next year after we have some experience. We're not sure yet.
This is probably not appropriate for this discussion, but what does it cost to run the emergency room at St. Andrews? I mean, if
I think
If
it's
they're,
about that
if they're
amount.
gonna be coming to the communities for $400,000 in additional taxation,
Right.
you know, why couldn't we somehow or other raise 400,000 and keep the emergency road at St. Andrews open? No, I mean, that's probably another question for another time, but what are we doing?
No, that's,
It is an interesting
no,
process.
that's precisely the question that we've been trying to figure out from,
Yeah.
since it started on July 31st. And we will continue to try to figure that out.
Is that also not hiring any full-time people and not making any change in the way you're staffing things?
What it is doing is taking people that were volunteers, truly volunteers, covering town for either low wage or standby wage of $4 or $5 an hour, or covering town for no reimbursement while the crew was away, and paying them. Now, it's full-time in the amount of hours that are covered around the clock, but it's not full-time as far as what we're considering an employee. There are not vacation time,
No benefits of
benefits,
any
anything
kind?
like that. Just the ones, the couple of us that are there now, there's no changes. It's just purely payroll, just to cover when the ambulance is out of town, to make sure there's enough resources in place.
And Scott, just to get this on the record,
Yeah.
realistically,
Yeah.
down the road, 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, this is not sustainable the way you're talking about doing it.
No.
I mean, bottom line is it's
No,
not.
I mean,
Are going to have to look down the road, if this happens, to putting on full-time people.
right. I mean, eventually, as things
And
ramp
we
up.
don't, yeah,
right.
I just wanted to have that out there so people know that, yeah.
I mean, what my experience has been is once, I mean, communities expect and deserve professional staff, no matter whether they're paid or volunteer. And as the requirements of what we need to do, as the requirements, it kind of has a little bit of a snowball effect and then it levels off. So to maintain the level of staff we need, at some point you do need to think about benefits to keep people, because we're going to be competing with those same EMTs and paramedics that everyone else is fighting for.
And the other aspect of it is, if this goes the way it is, if April 1st comes and we are no longer a critical access hospital, you are becoming our emergency room essentially.
Right,
You
that
know,
first
I mean,
half hour, right.
you're the people we're going to be relying on. So that's a tough reality for us all to be very aware of. But any other questions for Scott?
Patty?
Yeah, I have a question about, it's actually based on the interviews that I've been doing. The patterns that I hear people talk about is that, first of all, that most people don't call the ambulance, they drive, or get somebody to drive them to St. Andrews. And second of all, when they do go in the ambulance, they usually either are directed to or request to go south to Mid-Coast or to
Parkview or
Parkview or to Maine
Mercy or
Medical in
Maine Medical.
Portland. So my question, Scott, is what's the current proportion of people that you're taking to Miles versus people that you're taking to the other hospitals?
I don't have the exact numbers for you for that. It's very minimal how many that we're diverting from St. Andrews and going directly to Miles. Usually it's in cases that someone might need orthopedic services, but that's been less so because their orthopedic coverage has been restructured a little bit, so there's sometimes that they have orthopedic coverage from other facilities. So it hasn't made sense in the last year or so to take people with a fractured hip, for example, up to Miles because they may not be treated at Miles. They may need to go to Penn Bay or even Mid-Coast or even to Maine Med. So we've kind of gone away from that a little bit. There is some instances where someone is clearly going to be admitted. They're very, very stable. They've been recently discharged from Miles, and it's more of a readmission back into Miles that we have done some direct transfers up there. That's very rare right now. As things are starting to
Evolve.
I've noticed a little bit of a trend of some, well, just why don't you go direct to Miles? So that's happened a little bit, not often. So, and as far as the south stuff, like Mid-Coast, again, it's a situation of resources and whether we can first of all, with a stable patient, and then second of all, does it make sense for whoever's back in the community that might need an ambulance next
Yeah.
to have someone out of town for that long? And generally, right now, the way we're structured, the answer is no. We don't do that often.
So people who had been going south are gonna have to go to Miles.
Right.
Tom?
Thanks.
I just wanted to expand a little bit on Smith's observation by repeating something that I think I heard maybe from you or from somebody from the ambulance service, which is that a lot of employers now are perfectly happy to have people volunteering for the night shift on the ambulance service. They get a call at 2 a.m., they do the ambulance run, they're back in bed an hour and a half later or something. But it's a very different story if they have to drive up to Miles. They're up for almost all night. The employers are going to be less likely to do it, and that's the reason for having to change the character of the ambulance service from what it is now. And I think I think everybody has to think about the implications of Smith's question. It really has to do with the fact that what you've done is put together sort of a bare bones minimum. We'll just keep on keeping on and hope that for a year or so it won't make any difference. But his point was that in a couple of years we're not going to be able to do it that way anymore. And I think that's all the more important for people to assimilate and absorb.
Yeah, it's pretty profound.
Yeah, it is. It's a change in the character of the service.
And it's a change that a lot of, as I've said quite a few times, that a lot of communities have gone through 7 or 8 years ago. And it just hasn't had to happen here because the resources were so close by that,
Yeah.
you know, it could be pushed down the road a little bit, but now it's here. I don't foresee in the next 4 to 5 years, I don't foresee dozens of full-time employees and all kinds of ambulances. I think this next step is a model that we could use for a little bit longer, but eventually some of these people are going to have to turn into truly full-time benefited employees, and just to maintain. I mean, they're talking already in the next license revision that the CEH, the continuing education credits that we need, are going to increase in the number of hours. So it's just the effect both in the EMS system and locally are going to be pretty profound as to what's put on us to maintain, and it's really hard for volunteers to do that.
Thank you, Scott.
I just got one question then, Revella. Have you done a cost analysis yet, Scott, as to what it'll cost you in terms of money to pay for the benefits once those people go full-time?
Not at all, because I know that's a scary number. So I've already seen some scary numbers.
I understand it's a scary number, but I think it's a number we should have.
Absolutely. I mean, we're looking probably at 15, I would say, for each full-timer. You know, looking at just when I tried to do some shopping for health insurance, that's been a pretty big number in itself. And so we had to do some creative to keep it very affordable.
How much above the 300,000 that we're currently looking at would we be looking at?
I would say it would probably add at least another 50, if not more, probably 75. But that's just
That's at today's dollars.
no, right. That's just kind of like gut from what
Best
I know.
guess.
Right, best guess. I mean, it could go up from there depending on how crazy you got.
Thank you.
10 to 15K would be a good benchmark per
Yeah.
person.
Exactly.
Scott, did you look at any of those other ambulance services that had to go through this same kind of change to see if these numbers were similar? Did you do that research?
Well, we haven't done comparison to other services as extensively as that because the model is different. For example, I've heard some discussion about what does Damascotta do? Well, their ambulance is a block away from the hospital, so that model doesn't work. The ambulance service that I used to manage in Waldoboro, we went through this when I was the service chief there, and our experience was to pay for it, we did a lot more transfer work to offset what we would need for the town budget, and that's how we ended up making it work. Here, it all depends on what the transfer work is out of Miles, and that's going to be the key to find out what the true cost of the towns are going to be for subsidy. I'm familiar with working in the Rumford system, Medcare ambulance, but they have 16 towns that participate. It's a cooperative, and there are 16 towns that are involved in that. So it's pretty much that western part of Franklin County that they cover, and so that's a hard comparison, plus it's all full-time. The Franklin Memorial System is another system that I worked in. Again, they're the same thing. They have acquired Sugarloaf's ambulance, they've acquired CES, which is in Lisbon, so, Livermore Falls. So it's hard to do a true comparison, but in general, I think we're on par with what it would cost.
CLC uses first responders on the outlying peninsulas.
Yep, they do. Yep, they do. But their own, each fire department, generally, the fire departments have their own first responder group that's a license, and that's one of the concerns, is it would have to be a licensed first responder service, which would mean the cost of training. There are requirements of the equipment that they have to carry. So it's not like we could just say to the fire departments, you first respond and that will save everyone money. It's an expense, it's just which pocket it's coming out of.
Do they carry those 24/7?
They're required to, yep.
Thank you, brother.
All right, next under reports, Lincoln County Regional Planning Economic Impact Study. Mary Ellen.
Hi. We'll talk about a couple things tonight.
Mary, would you, step right up in front of Mike so people can hear.
Oh, that's right. As you know, we did talk with the University of Maine about describing the impact of one piece of this project, which is the possible loss of 29 jobs. And so we've gotten preliminary accounts of that, and I'm going to put some context to that, and we'll present that next week at the meeting on the 20th. Because it's just one thread, so I want to make sure that people understand what it represents. We had a meeting a couple weeks ago with Patty and Mike Pander and Mel Carey from Newcastle. We had a really wide-ranging conversation about the impacts, quality of life, property values, other things, and I left with the notion of trying to evaluate what I thought we could do within the RPC workload for little extra funds, and which would be something we could do in a timely way, which is a survey of realtors. So that's what I've been developing the last few days. So as you can imagine, many realtors in the world claim that they do real estate in Boothbay Harbor, but I'm trying to narrow it down so that we can actually get it done and we can have good numbers. And the other thing that struck me as we were talking about quality of life is that the communities are doing comprehensive plans, so that if we can get realtors' comments about the hospital, but also about other things, then we put it into a big picture. So right now in this area most directly, we have about 35 to 45 firms or individuals that do real estate, including a couple of the cottage rental places. So a couple of folks have volunteered to help me review the draft next week. And the notion is that we're not just asking their opinion. We're not asking about their opinion about the closing. We're asking for their, experiences of the last few years of sales and rentals, and then what they've heard lately since August, and what they might be expecting to hear. And we're asking folks who deal with house sales, second home sales, and vacation cottages. And what we're trying to do is, for example, we'll list a series of attributes about this region, whether it's water resources, the Opera House, great neighbors, things like that. And so healthcare, St. Andrews will be among the list of things that they'll be able to comment on. And we're going to be asking for their opinion, their feelings about it, but also their assessment of what they hear from their clients. So it's kind of two sets of questions. We do know that some people do have stories, tales of experiences with folks who have been ill in the past and have used the hospital, and so they've got, I think, direct information to share. So it's kind of two sets of questions we'll be asking. So I'm hoping to finalize this draft soon, and I can probably get it to you when it's a little bit better in shape. Let's see, the other thing is we have talked, I think Stuart has talked with DOT, Chris Johnson has talked with DOT, and I've talked to DOT about things like road maintenance, River Road, winter maintenance, and we're hoping to schedule a meeting with a couple of DOT representatives and folks, whether it's the ambulance service and the task force Hopefully, I just sent Chris an email the other day, but hopefully we can get something together. Because even though they sense that they can handle this, or they've got the process up at the state about how they designate roads or how they designate winter maintenance, I think it'd be very helpful for them to hear from you folks directly, because you live here and you experience the roads. And so those are a few aspects that we're working on. I'll be sharing highlights next week if there's time at the meeting. So.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mary Ellen, you said about all the realtors. Have you spoken to whoever sells the cottages at the village?
I haven't yet, but they're on my list.
Okay.
Yeah. So what we could do, this is for example, we're hoping to do this online. And perhaps I might call on you, a couple of people have volunteered to help perhaps inspire the realtors that are on our list to really fill out the survey. So I might call a couple of you to help with this. Because we'd like to get it done before the end of the calendar year if we can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We go up, they probably want to just be, we'll see them next week.
Unfortunately, I can't give you a financial and fundraising update. Jim has all the information, and he's unfortunately not here this evening.
No, he is, it's fortunate he's not here, he's on
Yeah,
vacation.
this is true, this is true.
He deserves a break.
He does. He's been extremely busy. So we'll move on to new business.
Old business.
I think we have something in the old business.
Okay.
Yeah.
Stand
Okay.
corrected.
Should I start with this?
Go ahead.
Okay, so as Peggy mentioned, we do have the community dinner coming up on Friday, November 30th. It will be held at the Booth Bay Fire Station. It's from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock p.m. You'll be seeing these posters around town. Many of us have our little list of places to visit, to tack them up. And the Booth Bay Register has offered to publish our press release about the event, and Jenny and Pam are spearheading the planning of it, so I'll turn it over to Jenny.
Okay, we have...
Would you stand up, please? Thank you.
You're welcome. So far, we've asked outside of the task force for some of our foods. Now I'm asking you folks if you can bake some things for us. I have over on the table by Peggy, yep, we have 4 sign-up sheets. But basically what we're going to be having is we're going to be having casseroles or hot dishes. We're going to have one of Pam's friends is making 90 biscuits for us. We're going to bake beans. We've almost got the baked beans covered. We need a lot of pies. We need a lot of pies because we'd like to we're not only going to serve them, we're going to try to sell some. So we want everybody to get baking. And I'm going to too as well. One piece of good news, and that is on our list that you have, okay, there are a lot of incidentals you need, paper plates, cups, sugar, salt and pepper, and all that type of thing. One of the people that works with Pam and I, she's part owner of that Rock Tide, and they're going to give, I don't know how much of that list, but a lot of stuff, I'm sure. If you'll take a look at that over there, and please sign up, just give your name, and if you want, maybe your phone number so I can remind you. But we really need pies and hot dishes right now.
And
Huh?
and salads.
And salads, that's right. Salads. I'm gonna make a big coleslaw, but we need some cold salads as well. And if you wanna make something hot, it can be anything. It doesn't necessarily have to be a casserole. It could be like meatballs and spaghetti. I mean, anything hot that we can serve in a big pan. Big pan. So anyway, please sign up for us, and we really, really appreciate it. Anything that you can do for us, because we can't make all this stuff by ourselves.
That's right.
Okay, I think that's it. Are there any questions?
Have you had any local musicians volunteer to come and make music?
No.
That would be nice.
I know of somebody in the room.
Really? Is there a musician in the room?
Maybe the fiddler?
Well, anyway, I think that we're gonna have a pretty good turnout. We're advertising it quite well. It's going to be in this week's paper, and I don't know. Do you have any questions about the dinner? I think it's gonna be great. So you have to cook for it, and then you have to come.
You think we'll be on diet though?
Tell all your friends.
No, but I think it's gonna be great. I
Thank
do.
you.
I'll tell you what, Jenny, I'll talk to my wife, and between the two of us, I'm sure we can come up with at least 4 pies for you.
I know I can
I
make
already
two.
talked to her.
Oh, write that down.
No, that's really good. Pies are, we'd like a lot of them.
Yeah, Nancy told me you'd been chatting with her, Pam.
Oh, we're hoping, we're planning on 100 people.
We're hoping.
Oh, yeah.
I'm out on the street all over. No, but I think it's going to be a really fun dinner, good dinner.
And one thing that we haven't mentioned is that Peggy has agreed to speak at the dinner. So not only will this be an opportunity to raise money, its main purpose is a fundraiser as part of the fundraising committee, but it'll also be an important educational piece. All of our friends who are coming want to hear a wonderful, positive speech from the task force about what we're doing, share what we're doing, and share community, food, eat together, enjoy an evening, and have fun and celebrate what we're doing here. So I hope you all can be there, and thank you all in advance for signing up.
Any other old business?
Anything else?
No, sorry. You can't.
No, we covered it.
Okay. Under new business, we'll recap the next meeting.
Good.
The next meeting will be at 6 o'clock at the elementary school gymnasium. Be a joint meeting with our legal counsel, Julius Sembranowitz, who will let everybody know what he's been working on for us, as well as Ivantage, and they'll get to meet with the public and get going on the proposal outside of what Bruce and his group has been giving them for information. We got 300 to 400 people there at very short notice at the last meeting when we all got going. I'd love to see that gymnasium filled.
Yeah. And that's at 6 p.m., not 7 p.m.
Yes.
Yeah.
Patty?
What are we
Didn't I let us
doing
say
to
6?
promote that?
No, I'm talking about the meeting.
Seems to me we need to do as much as you guys are doing for the potluck to get people's attention before Thanksgiving.
I believe Jim, if he hasn't already, will be putting it on the Facebook site as well as the Town of Booth Bay Facebook site. It's in the register.
It's been in the register, and Jim said he was gonna take out an ad.
Yeah.
I don't know if he has done that, but he said he was gonna take out an ad.
Peggy's
I did
gonna-
double check today too, because we have not been on the register's webpage calendar. And I was told that it was being sent to their webmaster. They don't know why it was on the calendar. It wasn't on the calendar, but, so it should show up on their webpage.
And I've heard that Tom Perkins is going to be walking with a sandwich sign to get people.
Can we get it on the chamber calendar?
No, that's too late, isn't it?
I don't know.
For the what?
On the
Online
chamber calendar, your online calendar.
Well, feel free to find out. Give him a
I'll
call.
ask.
Seems to me we need posters too.
Need what?
Posters like we've got for the potluck. Shouldn't we do some for the meeting next week too?
Can we get it on the school's new illuminated announcement board?
I bet.
Oh, that's a good idea.
That's a good idea.
I was going to check on that tomorrow, so.
Oh,
Actually,
good.
Brian, do you know what the process is for getting it on the school site?
Talk to Dan Welch, he can help you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sure.
Bruce?
Yeah, the consultants that we have a nationwide practice, and they have told us that every time the community is involved in these kinds of situations, it almost always has a good result. That the community needs to stay involved. I mean, I think our worst enemy is the sense that maybe this is a done deal and that there's no reason to stay involved. But our consultants are telling us when the community is involved and that force is there, that is a powerful force. So
And the thing that we've got going for us, Bruce, is look around.
I know.
The community still is involved. And it's vibrant, you know? Thank you.
And I'd like to say one other thing that, this is my take on what we just heard tonight. that, about the cost of the ambulance service, that this decision is such a blindingly bad decision that has been made, where a hospital that's been running in the black and getting federal subsidies to provide local health care is going to be changed in such a way that they will no longer get those federal subsidies. And the cost of doing that is being laid on the local people here through the property tax, which is the only way that the local communities have to fund something like the ambulance service. So you've got, what's happening at the top level here is we had a healthcare operation that was getting funding from the federal government to subsidize it, to deliver healthcare here. They're shutting that down and turning the cost over to the worst tax that we have in our grab bag of taxes. The worst tax in the world is the property tax. It's the most regressive tax, has no relation to what people are often able to pay. All I can say is it's a blindingly bad decision at that level, and I sure hope we can reverse it.
Bruce, I have a question. You said that we get federal funding, correct? The hospital does?
Yeah.
Okay, enough to make it continue running?
Pardon?
Enough to make it continue running?
Well, that of course is the point of contention. That is where that's the rub. That's where we're trying to come to some kind of clear delineation whether it is viable or it's not viable. Lincoln County Healthcare is certainly their position, and this is not viable. And we are trying to garner up the information to show that it is.
But if the hospital's been running in the black... Okay.
Well, we're not going to solve that issue tonight.
No, I guess not. Jeez.
I'd just like to say that if there are people out there that think that the community has become disinterested, they should look at the fact that the task force volunteers in a 12-hour period got 1,758 signatures.
Yeah.
That tells me that the community is very interested.
Anything but disinterested.
Yes.
Can I just...
Okay.
I sat on the petition from early morning until about 11 o'clock, and everybody was great that came through. We had them 3 and 4 deep, and if it wasn't for Jim, I never could have handled it all. But I did have one woman come through, and she glanced at the petition, and I said that this was for Save St. Andrews, and she, in a very loud voice, looked at me and said, "I'm a trustee, and it'll never work, and you're wasting your time." I just want everyone to know that.
One.
Huh? She was a trustee
On
the board of
Yeah.
Lincoln
County Healthcare.
All right.
I'm good.
Any public comment?
Yeah.
Fran?
Chuck, I'd like to comment on several issues, and I'll just say that my sources heard around town. But some personal thoughts of the Boothbay Harbor Town Manager. He indicated that there were some uncomfortable moments during the petition period, and that there was aggressive behavior by some of the people. Now, I'm not saying I believe this. These are his personal observations and thoughts. My only comment on that is, shouldn't a town clerk who's responsible for polling have interfered if there was something going on there? And should the register be taking a look at that to see if there's any real comments on it? The Boothbay Harbor Town Manager also stated, urgent care is a done deal. There's no turning back, nothing we can do about it. And he does attend our task force meetings sometimes. Those are some personal thoughts from the Boothbay Harbor Town Manager. That's kind of discouraging thing. So maybe a few folks are around Boothbay Harbor, and it's time to get rid of a town manager. But okay, now some other issues that are going on. Basically, the task force, and this is coming from Lincoln County Healthcare, wants to get together with a third-party mediator to intervene and determine a resolution. Now, I'm a mediator, and I do mediation for the Attorney General on consumer relations. And the word intervene is something you don't use when you're starting to pull people together, because it tells you, I've got my side already, and this is the side it's going to be.
Yeah.
So be cautious when you hear things like, let's get together. Along with that, that after the 20th meeting, Lincoln County Healthcare wants to get together at a very high level on their side with people on the task force to address everything and to see if they can participate in a resolution. And if the task force doesn't want to participate, the message that they will put out to the public is, we didn't want to come. So those are just kind of some things heard around town. So, be careful of what you hear around town, and don't hesitate to share it with people. Some of it is worth hearing to, some of it is things that you should be aware of as we prepare our defense for what we have to do to win this.
Thank you for that. And just to address one of your first issues about, I can't speak for Boothbay Harbor, I was not there. I do happen to know the town clerk and tax collector in Southport, who is a bulldog about making sure that elections are run appropriately and properly, and she was thrilled with how our people over there handled themselves.
Yeah, and I've heard the same message from Boothbay, and I'm not saying that that's true. I'm saying that's his observation that was given in a public forum.
Tom?
I just wanted to comment about the remark that was made about the trustee, who is very certain that St. Andrews is not viable. The proper question to ask such a trustee is, how do you know? Well, management told me. That's precisely the problem, in my opinion. This is a clear case where management has captured the Board of Trustees. So what the Board of Trustees thinks is true is what management tells them, not what necessarily is true. And what management can back up their story with is a report from a consultant that they hire who knows in advance what's got to be in the report. This is a phenomenon that we're confronting.
Yeah, along with that, a trustee has a fiduciary responsibility to manage what they're managing in an appropriate way. Maybe the question that could have been given to her is, as a trustee, how are you failing in your responsibilities to make this a viable hospital?
Right. Whoa.
That's good.
Anyone else?
It's okay, you can be rude back.
Peggy?
I have a final comment, let Dr. Grimm. Oh.
Yeah, it's Nancy Oliphant. The thing that keeps puzzling me about
Nancy, could you
this-
step forward a little bit?
Sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
The thing that keeps puzzling me about the whole behavior of Lincoln County is that they claim they are running this operation as a business. Now, if utilization of their business, if their customers are not coming to them, they should really be studying how to attract more customers, rather than saying, if you don't come play with us, we're going to pick up our toys and go away. And I have heard also threats, and their threats that if the urgent care center is not used, that's going away too. So basically what Lincoln County is saying all along is that we are what you have, love us or we'll leave you, is what it boils down to. And this does not strike me as a viable business model. It strikes me as the behavior of someone who wants to go out of business. And this is what's been increasingly clear as time goes on. So if they want to run it like a business, they need to do some marketing, perhaps. And determine who their customers are and woo them, instead of saying, "Oh, well, we don't, we're not going to be here anymore, but people down the road are just as good. This may do well for gasoline and potato chips, but not necessarily for health care, because you can do without potato chips." Thank you.
I just have a final comment, something that has happened to me this week, and I just wanted to share it with you all. It comes from my past, where I spent 3 wonderful years with 70 14-year-olds, 5 days a week, teaching them religion. And I will just say, remember how good you all felt a couple weeks ago when Dan said on November the 30th was St. Andrew's feast day? Remember how good you felt? Oh, it's a miracle, it's a miracle. Well, it's getting close to the end of the liturgical year, and I still do a lot of prayer work every morning. So I'm preparing my next year, and what I usually do is take the calendar and things that I know that are planned, birthdays for people and various family gatherings and special meetings, and maybe the hospital closing. I put them on a calendar and then go set about my prayer work for that particular day. Now, I don't know if any of you realize, well, let me just back up and say, as a religion teacher, it was in a Catholic school. Not all of you are Christian, perhaps, but there's a thing called Lent, where you're in the desert and you just don't think you're going to make it, and you're just being persecuted, and it follows Jesus' time while he was getting up to be crucified. There was one day where after his crucifixion, everybody thought he was dead and gone. And he rose from the dead. And next year, on March the 31st, it's Easter. And I want you all to know he will rise.
And on that note, I move we adjourn. All in favor?
Sign up, sign up.
Yes, don't forget, please, to sign up.
Thank you.